cord so I could plug in my phone and my iPad, and it's gone.
Can't help it.
And they changed my chair. I'm like, really?
How you doing? Just a question.
This is like Goldilocks. Somebody's been sleeping in my bed. Isn't it? Was it Goldilocks? No. It's been a while since I had to tell bedtime story. So you're wearing glasses today. I noticed this.
It's the blue light blockers. It's my eyes can just get too tired at the end of the day.
Mine are just,
There's Commissioner
It's
Deutsch.
just staring at a
Said he
screen
couldn't
all
make
day. It's gotten too much.
I tried them. They didn't help me as much, but
I feel it when I don't wear them. My
Yeah.
eyes are strained if I don't have them. So
you're wearing them only when you're on a computer?
yes, I should do it when I'm looking at my phone too. I need to keep them handy.
I am ready to move in.
Or the
It's not
prescription,
ready.
or just?
No, you can just buy them because I don't have prescription at all. But at least for now.
You don't wear glasses or contacts at all?
No.
Very fortunate.
Yes. So I'm trying to keep it that way. So if we can just reduce the strain for now, I'm hoping that will pay dividends eventually.
I can remember when I figured out I needed glasses. I was driving northbound on 75 and I couldn't read that sign that said 275.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the May 26th meeting of the Charlotte County Airport Authority. Please turn off your cell phones. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Hurston to do the invocation for us.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you. Shall we stand? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we take this time to praise your holy name, and we just give you the honor and the glory and praise for all that we accomplish here at the airport. We ask now that you provide this board with wisdom, increased IQ, discernment, critical thinking abilities as we review our monthly business arrangements. But we ask now and thank you for this country, for this state, and we ask for your blessing and a hedge of protection for this airport and all its operations and facilities. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Kelly, would you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Good morning. Mr. Andrews?
Here.
Mrs. Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Present.
Mr. Hansick?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here.
Mr. Hurston?
Present.
Mrs. Coppola?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, I also like to acknowledge we have our county commissioner, Stephen R. Deutsch here, and Punta Gorda City Councilman Mark Kuhowski. With that, any citizen wish to address an item on the agenda, please come forward and identify yourself, and when we get to that item, we'll have you come up and address the board. Oh, I might also acknowledge the city manager, Mr. Murray, is also here. Okay, having no one stepping forward, we move on to item number 7, which is our consent of item 6, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None for me, sir.
Nothing from board members or staff. Item 7, consent agenda, Mr. Parrish.
Both the consent agenda's pretty large, but presented.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to please pull the rates and charges section and also the rental car RFP.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear.
She's asked to pull the, under the consent agenda, and pull the item on rates and charges and the rent-a-car RFP.
Okay, thank you.
With the two removed or for pulled, which I'm showing as the rates and charges and the rental car RFP, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I second that.
All in favor? Any discussion?
None?
None. All in favor? Moving the consent agenda as amended? And we'll pick up the 2 items at the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, with you?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on, Secretary Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Coppola.
I will refer this to Mr. James Parrish for his expertise.
So I'd give you a little year-to-date and a monthly update. As you can see, for the month of March, we were pretty close to our estimates, although 25,000 under our total. A lot of that has to do with the cancellations, the slight loss. I mean, it's not a loss, it's under our budget. We still had a profit for the month, a fairly significant profit. But there were some cancellations, and Allegiant has cut about 16% of their schedule for the remainder of the year. So we're working with the budget and expenses to make sure we stay positive for the year, and it doesn't appear to affect us much. But again, we're doing well. It's 800,000 for the year over our estimates, and things continue to flow nicely. Accounts receivables, we're working with Allegiant. They had an issue with their processing. They did pay half of it, and they're paying the other half. As a matter of fact, it may have already been paid. They said they're paying it in their next check run. Everything else, I mean, you guys get it in your packet. The balance sheet continues to look good. I mean, if most of you recall, our total assets were about 50 million in 2012, and they're at 141 million today, so we continue to move up. Our balance sheet is strong. Our PFC collection is continuing. As a matter of fact, we'll be starting our PFC 4 app soon, as we have about 13 months left of authorization to collect. Any questions?
Not hearing any. I might mention to our audience and our viewers, airport board members get their packet a week ahead of the meeting, so they have an opportunity to review the extensive documents. Our packets are generally pretty thick, and if they develop any questions, they're encouraged to call the appropriate staff members for any clarification. So sometimes it appears we move through these things quickly without any thought or consideration, and that is not the fact. With that, we'll move on to liaison reports. Having no questions on accounts receivable, I'll take the first with Punta Gorda City Council. I will mention, as was on the consent agenda, that we have approved a joint meeting with the city, Punta Gorda City Council on June the 29th. Under the Sunshine Law, we have to publish that meeting. This is not in response, even though that there was a comment back in March that we burned bridges with the city council, which is not the fact, in my opinion, or this board, or from what I understand in talking with the various city councilmen. There are no bridges that have been burnt between our two organizations, and we're going to have an annual meeting at least starting in June of this year. With that, we'll move on from the City Council to the Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Andrews.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Deutsch, as our liaison, would you update us?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wow, there's an awful lot going on. Let me just quickly try and You guys will identify, just go up to about 35,000 feet and give you a view of what's happening. We've been dealing with impact fees under the umbrella of a special exception. We're going to be coming back and reviewing it again in 2 weeks, and I believe the final public hearing will probably be the last meeting in June. A whole bunch of other things are of interest. Pretty much most of them are sort of tied in, and we've been complimented by this on the Association of Counties and a lot of other places. Your county commission looks ahead and down the road. We're told more than any other commission, certainly in the state of Florida. We're literally, you know how you have to plan ahead. Well, we're like 30, 40 years down the road, particularly with the new reservoir that's in process now that's going to take a long time to do, with some of the things that we're doing with the infrastructure work. Some of you guys may know this, you may not know it. You know we are going to be widening Harbor View. That's being fast-tracked. That will be done. You know that there's going to be an additional exit coming off the interstate, and you know, you guys have a rep on the MPO, so he usually keeps you up to date on that stuff. And also, we're aggressively moving ahead on completing Edgewater. And Edgewater Drive is going to be heading in the northern direction up past Midway, you know, where the last roundabout. And I hated those roundabouts, but they seem to be working for most people. They're working, and we've had very few accidents there, and traffic continues to move. And I love the thought of being Mario Andretti as I go around. Anyway, but what we eventually going to, that's going to be extended from Midway all the way up to 776. And it's not going to go all the way up the way it does to Flamingo. It's going to curve through. And you know what's involved. You got to deal with purchasing and right away. But we've been planning on that, and we're also coordinating with DOT as more activity is taking place down in, you know, in Murdoch Village on how that intersection is going to be at 776. And I've gotten DOT finally after probably 11 and a half or 12 years, and Jim, you know this well, and Paul, they're reviewing the signification. We're going to change it. You shouldn't have to wait 3.5 minutes for a light to change, and so the state's going through that, and they're working on a lot of those. And so it's really exciting, you know, how many projects and the things that we're finding out. And sometimes, you know, the papers mislead, and everyone's been talking about all the units approved down on Burnstore Road. Well, that's true, they are. However, the road planning that we did is still 15 years ahead of where we are. And, you know, when they talk, and let me share this with you, because there's a misunderstanding on this, but when the commission approves 1,000 units, those don't get billed in a week or a month or 6 months or even 4 or 5 years. And a lot of those permits are stuff that's been updated. We know we're having a population explosion. We're going to be facing some decision-making things in terms of population, because there's a 200,000. You get some benefits if you're above, you get some benefits if you're below. The reality is we have over 200,000 people in Charlotte County now. They're talking about somewhere between 203 and 204. And they all seem to be on 41 at the same time. But, and some of those challenges, and we've talked about this, and we brought it up at the MPO meeting, we've got to start looking ahead. We're beginning to talk about, well, I've been talking about one of them, as you know, for 1.5 years, but we've been getting to talk about we must get a second crossing on the Mayaca. If there's a problem at 776 right now, and you want to get to Rotunda, so my GPS can get lost, or you want to get to Gulf Cove, or South Gulf Cove, or Pleasant, you got an 1.5 hour ride, because you got to go all the way up to River Road and down. And, you know, that's just, so we're looking at that. And also right now, and I made the prediction at MPO commission meeting, we're not going to have the access roads on 41 in 20 years. I'm probably not going to be driving there, but we're not going to have them, because that traffic's going to be going straight through. And what happens when it hits Punta Gorda? There's no place for those cars to go. And the mayor's aware of this, and I think she appreciated my comments at the last meeting when I brought it up. We've got to start looking at a second crossing of the Peace River. Because we're not going to, you know, I don't expect downtown Punta Gorda to be torn up. So there's just so many exciting things and so many things going on, and we're trying to, you know, we're working real hard to stay ahead of the curve. I could probably go on. I'm working at being succinct. I don't want to say what Hansick did the other night and embarrass him. Any questions, folks?
The only thing I'll say about the second crossing for Myakka River, I understand very well when something happens, I either wait or I head to Northport.
And there've been some accidents there, and the state's been reviewing that, and we've been taking a look at the whole extension as it goes all the way up. Oh, also, last but not least, we're pushing Sarasota to do River Road. River Road must be widened at least to Winchester as soon as possible, because that's the only way that people have to get down there, and we have a problem up here. But those are just some of the things. You guys know on your level you have them, but thank you, unless you have some questions.
You're not gonna fool around with Collingswood, are you?
No, we're not gonna mess with it.
'Cause
And
that's
people
my-
actually walk on that sidewalk now, which is
Well,
amazing.
that's my escape from the roundabout.
Yeah, we're gonna cross, we're gonna cross over Collingswood. And the traffic actually probably will be somewhat less, because I know people that, they don't take Flamingo to get to 776. A lot of them turn and go down Collingswood.
Yeah.
Particularly Christmas season, so they can see the direction, the decorations on those houses. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
You
you,
guys have a
Commissioner
great
Deutsch.
day.
Thank you, Commissioner Deutsch.
Okay. Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, Mr. Hurston.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had an MPO meeting on May 16th that I attended, and Commissioner Deutsch, Commissioner Constance, and Commissioner Teseo, and the Mayor of Punta Gorda were in attendance. But we adopted our 2-year Unified Planning Work Program. Paul knows that, the UPWP, and we had a draft public meeting on our 5-year TIP program, which is the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is a 5-year look at our transportation system. There appears to be some problems at Vermont Road, US 17 intersection. We had a few citizens complaining about that intersection. I guess the trucks are just really making a lot of noise for that residential community right there at the intersection. And the DOT gave us a nice report. They reported on about 15 different items, but the most important, I think, were the 7431 roundabout. We had quite a discussion on the US 41 Harborview Edgewater intersection, and the US 41 Forest Nelson and US 41 Olean intersections, but they did announce that they're working on a new technology. I think they're probably going to use the existing fiber optics, but they're going to be able to tie into each intersection from Bartow, which eliminates the need to get a consultant out there, do traffic counts on the intersection and make adjustments. They'll be able to look at Olean and 41 from Bartow, make the adjustments they need to make to the timing. And so there should be it's the leading edge of technology, and it may take a little while to implement, but I thought that was exciting. The MPO AC, I reported on that a meeting or so ago, but our next meeting is July 28th, and we're holding it in Gainesville. It's considered a retreat, and we're going to meet at the, like I say, in Gainesville at the FDOT State Materials Lab for a little field trip through that facility, have lunch, and then have our joint meeting with the staff directors and the board members at 3 o'clock. But other than that, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
that's it.
thank you. Mrs. Coppola, report on the community.
Excuse me, good morning, everybody, thanks for being here. I had several speaking engagements on speaking about our wonderful airport and how we're doing so well here, and I spoke to the Republican Executive Committee group and the Liberty Caucus group, and I met with some concerned citizens who were concerned about noise with the planes going over their homes. I referred them up to Mr. Parrish. I don't know if they came in or not to speak to you about it, but they were pretty hot under the collar about the noise. And also, I will be speaking at the Trump Club also, and this is strictly airport and how we're doing here, and what marvelous new things are happening, especially with the new runway that we're putting in. and all the wonderful things that are happening in our new buildings that are going up. So it's been a busy month for me, and I enjoy it. I like talking to people about the airport because it's successful and we're doing a great job here. And they agree. I get a lot of applause and a lot of accolades about how well this airport is run, and a lot of people that have taken off on our planes and have used our airport, they give me a lot of compliments. So I send the compliments to all of you also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to add to Mrs. Coppola's report that there were two opinion pieces in the newspaper, one by Mr. Andrews on what we can and cannot do as it relates to airport noise, and then there was another article by Dr. Pitts on airport privatization, which were both very informative as it related to the facts of those two items. And with that, we'll move on to Mrs. Oliver on state legislation report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as many of you know, the legislature just got out of their second special session of the year to deal with property insurance and also inspections relating to condominiums in response to the Seaside condo tragedy. So they finished that up last night. We are still waiting on the governor to sign the budget, so we're not, our $3 million appropriation is not yet guaranteed. And finally, I did ask Mr. Parrish, and I see it's on the agenda, to just have a brief discussion about our airport lobbyist going forward into the next session, since Mr. Paul is now up in Maine. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 10. Now, I understand our TVs aren't working out there.
Just one.
Just one? Okay. I couldn't see where they could see the agenda or the item. Item 10 on our agenda is our attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of good news things to report. One is I think we have finally concluded the Faber lease and document with a new concession agreement. All the build-out has been paid for. We've terminated the old concession agreement. They are now up and running, and we have an extended agreement after, I don't know, maybe a year of 400 drafts going back and forth. But fully concluded. It's a complex process, but glad to get it done. I've been charged with proceeding forward with changes in row hangar 2. We've made contact with them. That hangar obviously is going to have to be moved in order to accommodate the new rental car area. Unfortunately, that hangar stands in the place of it. They, quite frankly, understand that. I've talked with one of their representatives. They're more than willing to cooperate with. I've communicated with Mr. Duncan with regard to the process moving forward, along with Mr. Parrish. I was asked by Ms. Oliver to do a legal research. You asked me to report on this, and I'd like to do so. The question, as we framed it after some conversation, was, quote, if a person was not qualified to run for a specific elected office, but elected to an office and sworn into office, is their subsequent votes nullified if their initial qualification is determined invalid? I did the research on behalf of this inquiry. I could find no case directly on point. However, I found two cases that stood for the proposition that challenges to lack of qualification to run are rendered moot. In legal parlance, that means unchallengeable by virtue of the election. I provided those two cases to Ms. Oliver. She was satisfied with that opinion and asked I report that to the general public. Is there anything else you need on that, ma'am? She's also told me not to extend any further research associated with that issue. I have worked on the research associated with the impact fee. I'd say advanced that topic. I was set for 2 trials. One was going to be this week. Fortunately, that settled, so I couldn't get that in final writing. I'd like to complete that and run it by Ms. Oliver before I present it to the general public, although I would submit to you the position that I came up last time is going to remain the same, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to review that before I, generally publish that.
Thank you.
There are any number of general issues that always go about. Never ceases to amaze me the things that we have to deal with, from public records requests, which of course are great responsive to the public, to minimal property damage and having to draft releases for people that run over our parking equipment. So there's any number of variety of things. The last matter I report on is Gulf Contours. I wrote to them and asked them a couple of things. One was an update on their current process. I have not heard back from Mr. Goen associated with that. a note to the board that I understand that they still have not repaired the facility, the fire damage that was out there. I do know that they remain delinquent on their 2021 taxes, but they're current on the payment plan that they instituted to do that. They have paid off the 2020 plan. I have no other additional information associated with their plan to vacate the building at the end of August. Again, reiterated to them that they have 90 days from the end of this month to complete that process, and that as a result of that, once that is over, the abatement agreement will conclude, and this board will have to decide how it wants to proceed. That's my generalized report. Of course, I work with Mr. Parrish almost on a daily basis, and the rest of the staff, and I always appreciate their cooperation and general information that assists me. Thank you.
Any questions from board members of Mr. Carr?
Are we going to be addressing some of that relating to golf contours later on in this meeting under the new industrial facility or the box hangar section?
That's not an agenda item.
Well, the new industrial facility is a potential location.
Okay.
I have a question on Mr. Goins. Was he supposed to have fire insurance in the building? I'm
Yes,
sure he
ma'am.
was. That's part of our contracts.
Yes, ma'am?
Did he have fire insurance that covered
He's
what
never-
happened?
He's never responded to that inquiry.
And
I've
we don't-
asked, but he hasn't responded to
Do
some
we
of
know the insurance company that
No, ma'am.
he was with
No, ma'am.
to ask? No?
No.
Oh,
The last conversation I had with Mr. Goen relative to the fire, although if you recall, on our abatement agreement, it says he will complete those repairs by the end of December, 60
Right.
days. He has not done that. He has repeatedly told me he's going to do that. He has contracts to do that. Last reason that he said he didn't do that was he had to replace some machine. And as of today, it's still not done. We're now eight months delinquent just on that one concept.
I don't understand that. If he had fire insurance and they paid him for the damage, why wasn't it fixed?
I can't answer that question. Mr. Goen hasn't responded to me about that.
Mr. Hurston, you have?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carr, were you copied? In my packet was a handwritten white envelope, and inside that was a letter from, I think, Mr. Goings. Were you copied on that?
I don't have that, no.
Okay. Unfortunately, I guess I didn't bring it with me, but I'll make sure you get that.
I have no communication from Mr. Goen, although I would note to them, I write to him consistently. I have a consistent email thread with him that goes back probably 3 years that tracks exactly every communication I've had with him associated with this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes your report, I
Yes, sir.
assume? Okay, moving on to our CEO, Mr. Parrish's report. There are a number of items that he
certainly.
will address.
The development update, I think we have a slide. You guys asked for a quick slide on this. The spec building in the industrial park, that's the larger building that we're looking at. I kind of put the RFQ on hold right now. Prices are just so high. I'm still working on the financial part of it to make sure we can cash flow the building once it's built. There is a potential deal on one similar to the south that I'm kind of looking at to see how that goes through, and if it'll cash flow, we'll move forward on that. The golf course, Challenger Boulevard, we're waiting on comments. That is a relocation of that road or a closure of that road and an extension of Challenger required by the FAA due to the 1533 RPZ. The runway protection zone that the road's always been in it, but because we rehab the runway, they're asking us to move the road because of some changes to the RPZ rules that came out of a crash in, I think, Chicago. And the maintenance and operations facility, that's in progress, putting together an RFP for that, or I think that's on the agenda today, so, yes, on the agenda today. So solicitations, we have the new Taxiway Gulf that's on the agenda, terminal seating that's on the agenda, and Building 101 repairs, ramp repair, which we already approved. Planning studies, the terminal planning study, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. Go to the next slide, the rental car area study we've already discussed. Oh, sorry, you went one too far. Self-serve fuel, we are still working on an RFP and Michael Baker to finish some design work so we can get that completed. That's the new self-serve facility with the Air Center, Taxiway Delta reconstruction, as well as the 50 by 50 hangars and the inline baggage system and the FBO hangar are all in different stages of design. Construction, the roadway network improvements, that's on the agenda today. That is a curbside and inbound and outbound lane improvements that we're working on. One runway 422 rehab and reconstruction is underway. Wetlands, we're currently in the process of filling 2, and we're waiting on permits to fill the other 2 as part of the 422 contract. And we discussed the hangar for 422 or for 207 that we're currently building 10 units to replace 6 and add 4. T hangars under construction, or they're out for permitting with the county now. The plans are complete, and the general aviation apron, taxiway, and taxi lanes project is complete. We've closed out the FDOT portion. We're closing out the FAA portion, and the new terminal should be CO'd this month or next month, June. We hope to get in there July 1. There's a lot of other little things going on, but any specific questions I can try and answer.
Let's go back to the first full slide.
Okay.
On the projects.
First slide?
Yeah. Project 118, spec building and industrial park. Just a general question. That's going to be a fairly expensive building, I would assume.
That's now keep in mind, that's the 40,000 square foot building that we are design build.
And I want to, my question is, are we compromising any revenues that we would need for airport items?
Well,
as spending for a spec building.
that's the reason it's on hold. I mean, right now, when I first talked to contractors about building it, the price was about half what they're telling me it will be today. And so, as it is with everything, you know, our budget for the FBO hangar was 1.8 million. The GMP given to us by OAK is 4 million, and I've told them we're not going forward with a $4 million building. That'll never make any money. So that's kind of the reason I put that on hold. I want to see what happens with interest rates, with although you know that we wouldn't be borrowing the money, but it may slow down the construction process and get prices back in line.
Okay. The other question I had was on Project 120, Maintenance and Operation Facility. I assume there's been an evaluation either by staff or our proposed engineering firm on its location. I mean, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like it's in the right place, but it looks like, looking at it, it's probably the only place it can go without.
It's one of the 3 locations on the master plan, and in my opinion,
it's the best.
It's the best location.
This weekend. Okay, that's the only questions I have. Anybody else have any questions on projects?
No.
Because we're going to be addressing some later on the agenda.
You got to get a couple more moving is what I think.
just a few more.
Just get a couple more for us to handle.
And that's not an exhaustive list. That's just kind of the active
just
ones.
current stuff.
Ron used to have hair.
Yeah. I don't know how it does.
Miss Miller's out today. I can try and run you through the marketing update, but you know, as you guys know, that is something I don't totally understand, especially when it comes to the online stuff. But she's been busy with the buzz, putting out updates on our Blue Lightning, Allegiance hiring, our destination spotlights, and then just stuff about the airport itself and the T-hangars and inspections and things that are going on. She's tracking media coverage, our website, which continues to hit about 170,000 views a month, AVX, which is our expansion area. It's got a lot of information if you're looking to build our sample leases, prices, everything on there. We're pushing a lot of people there when they call us just to get the general information, and then if they're still interested, they can get back to us. Facebook, real excited to have 6,275 likes. I have no clue what that means. It's exciting. We've also, the canine crew has been around. The library is stocked, and those books fly off the shelf. It amazes me. And we have a digital advertising campaign with NBC2 and our Facebook campaign and all sorts of exciting things. If you have any specific questions on marketing, please call Kaylee when she's back in the office.
Do we ever get the books back?
No, we don't. So we have an agreement with the library system, and they resupply. We also ask tenants we have a T-shirt giveaway if you bring in 5 used paperbacks, and people do crazy things for T-shirts, and that works really well. So
Can I get one if I bring them in?
if you bring in 5 paperbacks, you can get a free T-shirt.
All right. I got about 100 of them at home.
Okay. Aviation report, Mr. Duncan.
Mr. Duncan, you want to take that one?
Sure. So taking a look at some of the exhibits that we had in the past, I asked staff, and actually Josh, one of our interns, or one of our ops agents is here, and he put together this first exhibit. And what this is showing is all the type of airport operations that we have during the month of April. I think in the past what we just did, we would just express it in a total number, and I thought it'd be wise to show that the airport is quite diverse, and we have a lot of different type of traffic that flies in and out of PGD. So for the month of April, we had 8,140 total operations, and if you'll see to the right, the pie chart, it shows the different type of operations. The largest are general aviation community at 45%. We have 1% of military. The LOC, that's local traffic, that's mostly flight schools, students staying in the pattern. So those are a lot of touch and goes. And air carrier is 16%, and for the month of April, that was all of Allegiant, and that was a total of 1,283 operations. And an operation that's both touchdown and takeoff. And then the other is air taxi, 2%. Those are like your charter flights.
It's nice to have that all on one slide.
Right. That was Josh who put that together. I had it in like 4 different slides. And
Yeah.
he said, "Why don't we try it on one slide, Mr. Duncan?" I said, "Sure." So, the next is the total enplanements for the month, and actually we had our best April. We had 198,101 passengers for the month of April. So we're doing quite well as we're coming out of the pandemic. And the final slide is a little bit different, showing how we sell fuel here at the airport. We've got 4 different categories. We got avgas off the truck, and that was about 8,100 gallons. We've got avgas self-serve, and you'll see it was 13,000 gallons, and that was and the number to the bottom of all those columns, that's what we call uplifts. So we had 511 transactions at our self-serve island that accounted for that 13,000 gallons. So the self-serve islands really pay off. It's the best bargain for fuel on the airport if you're purchasing avgas. And what that is, it's like somebody going to the pumps where you have to pump it yourself. So there's minimal cost to the airport, so we only charge currently a 50 cents margin on our self-serve fuel. The next category is jet gallons sold. We had 80,938 gallons out of the truck, and that accounted for 332 transactions. And then naturally the largest category is the fuel we pump for our air carriers. That was about 1.4 million gallons, and it was a total of 900 transactions. So you could account for
fuel versus, as compared to the amount of work that it takes to pump that fuel. That's it. I think I was also asked to speak on the honor flight. So on May 14th, we had, I think it was a total of 84 veterans, and they were all accompanied by like a chaperone. Each veteran had somebody to assist them through the day, and the flight left out early. It was an Allegiant charter flight, and it left at the airport 6 o'clock or so, early morning, and they take all these veterans, and the veterans were made up of a few World War II vets, some Korean vets, and I think the majority of them were Vietnam veterans. And they take them up to Washington, D.C. for the day, show them all of the monuments down at the mall, and then they bring them back. And a number of us were here to greet them, along with a large group from the community. It got some great press. There was a couple just wonderful articles in the paper. There was a letter to the editor a couple days ago, and it was just a wonderful event. If you've never had a chance to, or if you have a chance to experience it, the next time we do one, please come out. Some of these veterans never were welcomed when they came back from war, and it was just really emotional and really nice to see what the community does for our veterans here. So again, I was glad to be part of it. There was a number of our employees that played a big part in it. So again, it was a great event.
A few years ago, I accompanied a veteran on a flight to Washington. We flew out of Fort Myers Airport because we didn't have it here at that time. And it was the most rewarding trip. These gentlemen are just phenomenal. And we went all over Washington. We ate well. We had a picnic in the park. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And I would encourage anybody to do this. It was just terrific. I enjoyed it. I think I'll go the next time if they come out of here.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Perez, terminal study.
So we've been in the process of a terminal study for a while. I'm just going to present a little bit of it, kind of one of the option we've kind of honed in on, both because of the ability to expand it in the future and ease of construction and disruption. So, but we put this out for the planners. You know, they looked at what we needed based on our activity levels and refinements to space, and there were really no limits placed on them. So this is what they came up with. This is alternative one. And go to the next slide, please. This is what we have. I don't think we need to look at that too much, but everybody knows that that's kind of where we are. We're very limited in, and I still think we have plenty of space, but because of the way Allegiant and even Sun Country operate, we tend to get a lot of people in line at the check-in counter, and then, or we get a lot of people in line with TSA. So we have 5 lanes there. We have 14. We have about 20 check-in counters.
Wow.
Allegiant uses 14. So let's go to the next slide. This is kind of an overview of the linear concourse expansion, and you'll notice that the hold rooms have moved out of the main building, and they will be in a facility that is closer to the ramp, closer to the airplanes. The planes will actually move back slightly. And the reason we like this one is the modular aspect of it. We can add as we need to. Obviously, I don't think we would build everything in the first phase, but the 4 bag claim belts and the 12 gates could easily be 10 gates and 2 bag claim belts, and then we could add those on. Next slide. Oh, that's all jumping around there, but still 12 parking positions. It moves them back, allows for a lot of the functionality that we have today, a lane between the taxiway object-free area for bypass traffic that won't go into the security area. And okay, next slide. We maintain our clearance in the front of the planes, so we don't have to have a deluge system. We end up increasing the number of restrooms, which has always been an issue in the hold room. Concessions in the hold room grow considerably. Also look at queuing for the TSA, queuing for the ticket counters. Go to the next slide. Like I said, four bag claim belts. Next slide. And then, wow, this is going to make me sick. And then we're currently working on a screening area. So this is basically the bag screening area that we're working on with TSA. In all of these designs just kind of slides back and forth. It's the same. Ultimately, even though this is 1A, this is one they went in deeply on, but 1B is very similar. Go to the next slide. Passenger flows, next slide. They come in there, go through TSA, go out to their gates, and out to the planes. So kind of easy to see. Next slide. Arriving passengers just come in, still go through a little corridor, and then into baggage claim. And then, so 1B. 1B's significantly cheaper than 1A, even though they look very similar on the slide. The main difference is it maintains our current mechanical room, which was in the old building, which is where the chillers, air handlers are located, so we wouldn't have the cost of moving all of that and the expense of temporary equipment while that is being moved. It divides the check-in area a little, but both of them had a small division in it. If you notice, it would require, and both plans required at some point, the demolition of the current FBO hangar. So keep that in mind as we move forward. All of the designs maintain the current rental car center that will be expanded with the removal of the hangar. This would get us through it would about double the amount of employments we can use. One of our challenges, and we're working with Allegiant, is we only utilize the gates 2.8 times per day. We'd like to utilize the gates 8 times per day.
Yeah.
And the problem is we have, an airline that is based here. They leave in the morning. They have some midday traffic coming in or mid-morning traffic coming inbound. Then they all come back at the lunch hour. That has become our busiest hour from about 10:30 to 2. That's when all the planes come back and then leave again. We have 20 operations, 10 inbound, 10 outbound within 2 hours some days. So
Wow.
I think one of our commissioners flew out at one of those days, and it was fairly crowded. So we're working with them, also working with them, talking to them about how we're going to pay for this. So obviously, it's their schedule that causes a lot of this need to expand, and so they're looking at what they can do scheduling-wise to slow this process down, as well as, how we're going to pay for it in the future. But one of the reasons we initiated this study is there is money in the bipartisan infrastructure bill to pay for terminals, which is not a normal thing from the FAA. Only non-hub airports qualify for significant terminal money. So I want to make sure we have something that we can move forward on in case we are awarded some of that money. This is just planning. We would have to move to the next stage on design if we want to move forward.
The extra money, I think we have, is it $25 billion that's been set aside for terminal development? That's for the whole country?
The whole country, and then there's money for small hubs, medium hubs, and large hubs. If you just take the number of small hubs and divide, we should qualify for about 18 million. We're in for 38, Sarasota's in for 90. So there's not enough money to go around, but I think
that's just Florida.
That's 2 airports within 60 miles of each other.
Does this create a parking problem also?
Parking
cars?
for,
For
oh,
cars?
we will continue to have to expand our parking
I think so,
footprint.
with all of them taken off at the same time.
Look, keep in mind, this is all planning. If we decide to move forward, we'll have an engineering and architectural contract come in and actually do designs, price it, and, you know, figure out how we're going to build as we move forward. If you look at PIE, St. Pete, they are starting the process. They're looking at about $120 million expansion. Go to the next slide. I don't know if I put it in. There's no more. Good. We do have some preliminary cost estimates. This is $80+ million total cost.
For the big plan.
Yeah. So obviously, if we are awarded $38 million, we put some PFC money into it, we still are way short of the total design. And since, you know, with one airline, I'm very hesitant on borrowing money, because if we lose one airline, we lose all of our airlines. You know, Sun Country at 2 flights a week is not going to pay those bills. I would, you know, I would still encourage the board to consider building small chunks as we need it. But the core is going to have to be updated.
And Mr. Parrish, when you say the core is going to have to be updated, is that based on today, our flight patterns today, or is it anticipated after Sunseeker?
Well, it's just anticipated growth. I mean, we are in year 6 of our master plan, I believe, 6 or 7, but we're already in year 10 on our growth, so.
You see all the new homes that are being built all over. Wow,
No,
it's
absolutely.
amazing.
My great fear is, you know, we build this huge, very expensive terminal, go into debt, and then something happens. A recession happens, 2008 happens all over again. I'm opposed to going into debt. I like
And
our
that's
low
why,
cost.
that's why I am too, and that's, you know, that's why I like to build incrementally, we always
Little bit
have.
at a time.
And that's why I like that design, because you can build incrementally.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
The commissioner's comments about going into debt obviously is a hot issue right now, but you need to remember, if you go into debt, you gotta have revenue to pay the debt off. And I understand about one airline, we've had the conversation. So we should put that issue to bed. New business, old business.
No old business
Old
today.
business, no old business. Item 13, new business. Terminal seating.
Terminal seating, as you'll recall, we went out for bids on terminal seating. We budgeted this year $750,000 to replace the seating in the terminal. It always amazes me that seating costs that much. We could buy Lazy Boys for everybody at that price, but
Kidding? Really?
Airport Seating Alliance was ranked number 1. We did this both on a cost and quality calculation, and we have yet to negotiate the final number because it depends on how many charging stations we put in. Some had them on every seat. I think we'll do one or two per 5. And also stand-up charging stations and all of that. So what I'd like to do, if the board is okay with it, is select Airport Seating Alliance and then allow us to finalize a layout and review and then negotiate a contract not to exceed $650,000.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize staff to begin the seating layout review process and to negotiate and execute a contract with Airport Seating Alliance with a not-to-exceed amount of $650,000 as presented.
Seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion concerning entering into a contract with for terminal seating by Airport Seating Alliance not to exceed this as stated? Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, hearing none, motion Carried unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is the design of a new maintenance and operations facility. As we discussed at the previous meeting, the operation and maintenance, well, the maintenance facility is woefully undersized for our current operations. We have been working with Michael Baker to put together a scope and fee to do a design, and this contract would finalize or put together a design for the building. They have done some preliminary space layouts, and we're confident that we can move forward. Again, we're going to be very price sensitive on this as construction prices are skyrocketing, and I hope that by the time we have this designed, things will have calmed down a bit.
Mr. Chairman, quick question. James, is the, I guess, page A2, that somehow, and I guess A3 coordinates with A4?
Yes.
And so that area right in there would be this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Commissioner, which one are you going to?
This one.
The cartoon.
A2 is colored, and so and there's also something shown on A3, and that conforms to the operations and maintenance text on A4. Jim, how big is that future development? That looks like a nice building.
Do you have the exact sizes, Ray?
18.
On the future development? Future development,
Yes.
18.4?
The future.
On A4, the future development crosshatch building. Don't have that? Okay.
Well, why don't we go ahead and discuss this?
Yeah.
Now, and then we'll go into the
Yeah,
motion, because
yeah.
there's some questions on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who did I'm just kind of curious who laid out the,
Michael Baker.
okay. He's here. Michael Baker's not here, but I would assume that our employees have had an opportunity to provide input into it, because they're the ones that work the building, and they know where they need this and they need that, and different
No, we have been,
cubicles for
we-
each of the different things they do.
we have been parsing each piece that came to us through staff to make sure that they're comfortable with it. Mr. Morgan and Mr. LaRoche have sat down with the individuals that will be using each area, as well as the operations team. And, yeah, I think trying, obviously, if you ask staff what they need, they want
Oh, yeah.
a lot. I think this is a very workable design, and it also has some, expandability in the future if we need to.
There hasn't been any decision on the type of construction, whether it be block or,
No.
Metal buildings tend to get crunched.
Yeah, I would,
Maybe as you get into, pre-slab, something like that, maintenance free.
unfortunately, it doesn't lend itself well to tilt up, but it could, I agree, I would at least want to go up 4 or 5 feet with block before you went metal,
Yeah.
just because mowers and trucks and things always seem to hit metal
You haven't
buildings.
seen any of that, have you?
I've never, I've seen that happen the day after we installed a metal building. I don't think Ray was driving it, but I blame him.
I don't know, he's just hiding his face.
So I would like to get authorization to execute a contract for $575,200 for the design, and that would also include some construction phase services if we go out, after we go out to bid and award to a contractor.
Quick question, Mr. Chair. James, do we have the $575,000? I know we have the outline of the proposal, but did they list that, okay, on the back
Yeah, it's
page?
last
There you
page.
go. Well, I'll tell you, the civil's getting pretty high. What are we looking at, almost 100 grand?
I'm thinking
On
about
just the
going
civil.
into civil engineering again.
Yeah, I know. That's nice, but it's quite a fee.
And- Sorry, Mr. Parrish, and what is the estimated cost of the new maintenance and operations facility?
$4 million. And we're working with the DOT and trying to get it in. It is in our JSIP, but trying to get it moved forward as a project, updating all the costs. That would be a 50-50 project with them.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the board move to approve and authorize the CEO to execute a contract with Michael Baker International in the amount of $575,200.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to have the vote on authorizing Mr. Parrish, our CEO, to execute a contract with Michael Baker International in the amount of $575,200 for design and some initial construction services. I guess that's in that contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously.
The next item is requesting the board authorize us to go out for an RFQ for design build projects. We had this in the past. The state limits it to $250,000 total projects. We just have a lot of small things going on, and for staff to put together RFPs, and just like the hangar refurbishment, we're paints over the limit that we can do without going out for 3 proposals, carpeting, electrical work. So we're spending a lot of time just putting together the packages to go out with a design build firm. We just give it to them. They do all that legwork and then come back to us with a total cost. All the projects would then be brought to the board for approval. It just eliminates the need for, right now, if we continue the way we're going, we're going to need to add some staff in the procurement department, which is a half a person right now, so.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the approval to produce an RFQ for design build services for projects under $250,000 US and bring back to the board a ranked list of firms for selection of design build firms.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to produce an RFQ for design build services not to exceed $250,000 in costs and bring back to the board a ranking of the firms for selection by the board. All those in favor?
Any discussion?
Well, any discussion, sorry.
Mr. Parrish, I think you said in 2014, staff was approved for this. Did staff lose the authorization, or?
We
what
just
was
didn't
this?
extend it.
Okay, thank you.
That way you get a new look at who you may want to use,
And
essentially.
how long will this list be authorized for?
We generally do 3 years.
That it?
That's it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Same sign, no, all, motion carried unanimously.
The next item's the selection committee for the Taxiway Gulf project. That is the extension of what is Echo, but it's offset out from the new GA facility to Taxiway Alpha. I'd like to see if a board member would like to be on the selection committee.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that Mr. Hurston, if he'd be willing to go on the selection committee, primarily because of his engineering background. Anybody else have an interest?
I do, but I agree with,
Well, you were my number 2.
thank you.
That's supposed to make you feel better.
I would be honored. I would be honored to be on the committee.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion on that.
Don't need
It's
a
just,
vote on
action. Yeah. Okay. This one is, go ahead, Mr. Perry, this was a little bit more complicated.
Yes, so we designed the terminal curbside traffic network project a long time ago. And we were having trouble getting it funded. The DOT didn't feel that it was a high priority project. Then the new strategic intermodal system coordinator was at the office talking to us one day, and she said, well, where can we help? And it was a great day to show her because traffic was backed up about 200 cars deep on Piper Road.
Wow.
And I said, right there. So 2 weeks later, we got a grant. She said, send us the estimates. Well, everything we had was on the older project. We had no time to update it because she asked for it the next day. So we bid it. These numbers, in my opinion, are crazy. So what we're deciding to do, and we're working with DOT to change it, is just do the network improvements, which are the improvements, third lane in or second lane in on Viking, a second lane out on Airport, which would make those 3-lane roads, 2 in, 1 out, 2 out, 1 in, and a turn lane, as well as we have to relocate some city utilities that are in the turn lane area. So what we would like to do is authorize us to execute a contract once we get approval from the DOT with Pavement Maintenance LLC in the amount of $1.4 million. We would also work with the city on their interlocal agreement with them for reimbursement for that work, and as well as work with the DOT to get the amount raised from the 50/50 at 270, almost 300,000 to about 500,000.
Does the airline help with any of that money?
Is this a PFC project? No?
No.
No, it's not. No, I don't think you, you know, the lane in front of the terminal could be PFC eligible, but usually the traffic stuff is
I
not.
would
It's
think
DOT eligible.
It benefits them also.
It does, but there's a limit to what the FAA will allow them to spend, us to spend PFC money on.
Oh,
So-
Going to take movies when it starts to show to them?
It's
That's
federal
going to
law.
be a mess, or, well,
So
A
the
lot of
reason we're
traffic.
pulling the lane in front of the terminal out is twofold. One, because of some FB&L facilities, the lane wouldn't be the complete length, and it wouldn't allow us to increase another lane all the way in. It would literally start right after the snack shack. So we still have that bottleneck right past the parking
I
turnoff.
can see it now.
And with the terminal expansion potentially happening in the next, 3 to 5 years, I just don't think we should do something that may ultimately get taken out.
And it could be included in the terminal.
It very well could be funded at 90% by the terminal project, so.
And to expand a little bit on Mrs. Coppola's question, if I recall, only public areas are eligible for federal funding with AIP dollars.
Yeah, and this is, although we have used AIP money in the past to do some improvements, it is very low priority, and it's generally something you can do with another project, not as a standalone
Yeah,
project.
when you get your runways and taxiways and all that stuff done.
Mr. Chairman, so James, clarification, the 1431165 dollars does not include the lane improvements in front of the terminal.
That does not include the lane improvements in front of the terminal.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize the CEO to execute the construction contract with Pavement Maintenance LLC in the amount of $1,431,165 for work associated with the terminal improvement portion of the project.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Everybody understand how this is being pulled together? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of authorizing the CEO to execute a construction contract with Pavement Maintenance LLC in an amount of roughly $1.4 million for work associated with the terminal improvements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same sign, no. Motion carried unanimously.
Then the next project is Runway 927 Rehab, which is near and dear to my heart. I did the rehab on 927 in 2006 or 7 after Hurricane Charlie, and FP&L used it. Hurricane Charlie just abused it, and FP&L used it for 2 years. We were able to get some insurance money from FP&L's insurance, or from FP&L Direct, because of some damage caused by their trucks. We milled and overlaid a small section of the runway, and at the time, we worked with the General Aviation group, EAA, and you got to recall that the master plan at the time said the runway was to be closed, and this was really a 5-year Band-Aid. So now we're 15 years removed from that. The 5-year Band-Aid is 10 years old, older than I thought it would last. The runway is in marginal condition based on the FDOT's review of it. Fair is what they call it. So we requested our 2 contractors that are currently out there working give us prices based on their bids for their projects. We compared the 2. Wright Construction came in at $762,495, slightly less than Ajax Paving. This project will be paid for 100% PFC dollars. Allegiant did agree in our PFC app to allow PFC money to go to a general aviation only runway, which is not normal, but as partners, they worked really well with us and understand that the expansion of the general aviation area helps them, and honestly, the expansion of the general aviation area should increase the use on 927. I'd like to get this done as quickly as possible so that when the GA facility opens up, the runway will be done shortly thereafter.
Mr. Chair, I'd like, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize CEO to execute an agreement with Wright Construction Group in the amount of $762,495.64 for the rehabilitation of runway 927 as presented.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Parrish, so will we have to shut down runway 927?
Oh, yeah.
for a period of time? So what are the GA folks going to do?
It's been shut down for the majority of the year because of the taxiway construction alongside of it. So they just use 1533.
The taxi a little further.
Yeah.
Mr. Parrish, if legal, I'm going to go ahead and donate 64 cents to the airport,
Yep.
and you can give those guys a credit of 64
I
cents.
wish we could do that. I had a 1 cent rounding error in a project, and the FAA made us spend 2 weeks finding it.
You're kidding.
No.
Were these numbers based on existing quantity costs?
Yes.
So we're taking advantage of the cheaper asphalt costs. That's good.
Correct.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of authorizing our CEO to execute an agreement with Wright Construction Group in the amount of $762,495.64 for rehab of runway 927. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously.
Yeah. Just to go on, letter G, box hangers, this is an addition of 4. As you'll recall, we awarded the design of 5, and then based on a demand study, we think building out completely as 9 is prudent at this point. We negotiated a change order with the contractor for $1.154, $260, and with the designer for $41,850 to change the construction design, permitting, and construction phase services for the 4. Told you at the last meeting we'd bring this back, so here it is.
Quick question, James. If I understand this,
Let's get a motion and then.
yeah. Go ahead.
Otherwise I get confused.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize the CEO to execute the agreement amendment with AECom in the amount of $41,805 and a change order with Stellar Development, Inc. in the amount of $1,154,260 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Okay, discussion.
Yes, sir. James, now, as I understand it, it doesn't include the site civil work, the actual site construction cost, is that correct?
That's included in the change order with Stellar.
Okay, that's included.
Just the design is not included.
And do these projects, do we qualify for a 10-2 cert, or because of our land ownership, we don't qualify for the 10-2 cert? Do we have to do an NPDES permit for our small projects?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Parrish, based on the proposed fees of $600 a month plus tax per unit, so that's $7,200 a year in rent, how long will it take the airport to break even on this project?
General aviation facilities never break even. If it was a commercial facility, we would be charging 4 times that. General aviation facilities are you know, you can divide it out with 0% interest, and it's probably the life of the building.
Well, you also would add in the fuel they buy from us.
And that's the idea.
Little
It's the
things.
increased activity.
Yeah.
We are, and you
Restaurants.
see from our numbers, we're a large GA airport with a commercial component. The commercial component pays a lot of the bills, but we're still a large GA airport, and I think this is a service to the GA community that because of the grants we receive from the FAA, you know, we're kind of obligated to continue to grow the facility.
Absolutely.
So-
I mean, they are our stalwart.
If we based rents on construction costs, no one would rent a hangar.
Yeah, it's, general aviation is a big component of most
Absolutely.
airports, and that's an element that you have to support. And if you look at what you're supporting, those general aviation and corporate aircraft, a good percentage of them represent economic development
Yeah.
into Charlotte County because they're using that aircraft in their business.
Absolutely.
So you gotta take care of these guys. You know, over a period of time, you know, with their rents and their fuel and the maintenance activities they provide to our companies that
Yeah.
provide aircraft maintenance, it all works together as a
Yeah.
unit.
Absolutely.
No, it's just, it is part of our obligation to continue to support general aviation. And so that's the reason, you know, we're finishing up an $18 million project. We're going to extend taxiways, we're building T-hangars, we're building box hangars, so, I mean, this is part of the job of being an airport, especially in Florida where GA is, I think we're the second most populous GA
sure.
airport, or GA community in the nation.
Yep.
Okay? Any other
My question was answered,
questions?
thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Of
Aye.
the motion? All those opposed? same sign. I should have repeated it, but we know what it, as presented, sorry. Okay. We're down to item H under new business, the RFP concerning the lobbyists.
Yes. Commissioner Oliver asked that I put the lobbyist RFP back on the agenda as Capital Energy, Capital Access has merged with Anfield, or was absorbed into Anfield with the exodus of Mr. Paul, who's now a university president. We do have a relationship with some of the people that are at Anfield, but I think our contract with Capital Access could at this point be broken since they are no longer in existence. If we want to either look at the other entities who proposed or sign a new contract with Anfield for the next year and then go back out for an RFP in the future.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question, and it's directed at our attorney, but I just find it hard to believe that our contract with Capital doesn't include some type of continuation in the case of a merger or...
Improvement of an assignment.
Yeah, something like that. I'm just surprised that it
There's a
wouldn't.
distinction between a merger of two entities and an assignment of a contract. I think he merged his company into that. However, you should note that I think that contract, I don't have it in front of me, I think it's almost terminable at will or on a very short notice anyway. So I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it has like a 60-day or 30-day notice provision to terminate it. So it really doesn't matter. You could not breach it, as Mr. Parrish said, but terminate it because you just desire to terminate it as a result of change in personnel. I'm sure all of us recognize that most of these things are personal service contracts dependent on the individual as opposed to the company, and if you decide to terminate it and go back out, you can do that.
Yeah, it's 30 days with or without cause, written notification.
So it was a short notice on the termination, which therefore if you wanted to just provide notice today that you're terminating the contract, you could welcome the new entity to participate in the RFP if they wanted to, so you could, but I'd say meet those folks. It's up to however you want to do it. But that's why it doesn't have due on merger termination.
I think I'd like to hear Mrs. Oliver's position and what you want. I mean, you're our quote-unquote lobbyist for the state legislative thing, our liaison, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
I will say that, in my opinion, what I would like to see us do is go back out. My ranking of Capital Access was based solely on Jerry Paul, who was our lobbyist from Charlotte County, has a proven track record. And I used those factors in evaluating all the others that were out there. Anfield Consulting, I don't recall if they submitted a bid, but I don't believe so. So I would like to have a level playing field and evaluate Anfield the same as we evaluated everyone else, and see what they come back with.
Mr. Parrish, does it put in jeopardy anything that we have Capital negotiating right now or in discussions about?
I would like to not terminate until after the budget's signed, just so we can continue negotiation and discussion with the governor's staff on our, but we would need to get an RFP out, I would say in the next 60 days, to have a chance to
Get in the next cycle.
Yeah, get it in so that we can have people on board prior to the next session's planning.
How much time do we usually give the firms to submit?
30
packages?
days.
30 days. So we're out 90 days for sure.
Correct.
What's the pleasure of the board? Can we do both? Can we do them simultaneously?
Well,
Or does that put our current lobbyists in a position that, well, I may not get the contract again?
Well, they may not, but they may.
But they're still under a contract
Yeah.
with us and are obligated to
I would-
provide services
yeah,
so
I
long
would-
as we're paying them.
Yeah, I would just wouldn't provide, I wouldn't terminate until we're done with all active.
With the current
Project.
legislative cycle with the governor signing it? No.
I think you can put a deadline of July 1, because that's the deadline.
Jim, do we look at the RFPs before they go out, or we just go ahead and authorize staff?
If you authorize us to do an RFP, we will
Bring it back.
basically recycle the old one and get it out. I think that would be the best thing to do, because if we wait a month to have you review it and then put it out, we would be pushing the end of the envelope.
I thought the RFP that you all prepared last time was excellent. I don't see any need to reinvent the wheel.
We do not like to reinvent, so.
Well, I think it would be appropriate for someone to maybe generate a motion on which way you guys want to go, and give instruction to staff.
Sure. Mr. Chair, if I may, I would move that we move to terminate our contract with Anfield Consulting with a termination date on or after July 1 of 2022. And in the meantime, also prepare and put out an RFP for a new lobbyist.
For lobbyist services, you know,
Sure.
I wouldn't say necessarily new. That would indicate that our current lobbyist.
Put out
is-
an RFP for lobbyist services.
Yeah. Sorry, I was playing attorney.
And we can do this. We can do this even though we have an ongoing contract with Capital Access?
Sure.
We
I
can
think
do
you're
this?
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Jim,
So-
real quick, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Well, we need a second on the motion, and then we'll.
Oh, second.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I'll second the motion.
Well, Mrs. Coppola got it.
Oh, did she? I missed it.
Yeah.
So we're open for a discussion on the motion, which is to terminate the existing contract with Airfield Consulting effective July 1, and in the interim, go out for what did I say? New RFP.
Now, do they have, does this Capital Access have anything ongoing for us right now?
That's why it's going
Current?
to July 1.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I didn't think the motion was going to include termination language. I thought we were going to let that rest because we're under contract with the people and just put the RFQ out, is what I thought we talked about.
Well, in that instance, we're essentially paying them for services that they're not necessarily providing. You know, we're going to be selecting them or somebody else. We're paying, what is it, $3,000 a month for every month. So after July 1, you know, the governor's either signed off on our appropriations request or vetoed it. There's not a lot for them to do in the month of July or August, but that would be the time that we would be selecting a qualified firm.
And I just think that termination language creates a little bit of friction there with that group, and we still don't have our bill signed, you know, for, what, $3 million? I just think it creates a source of friction.
I think, yeah, it could motivate.
Exactly.
I've
Prove that
discussed,
track record.
I've discussed this with the team. They came to visit us a few weeks ago. I mean, I don't think this will be a surprise to them. And I honestly think that if they get this pushed across the line, it would give them a leg up on the competition, obviously, in my opinion. So, I don't think it would hurt, and that's just my opinion.
That opinion is valuable in my opinion.
Hearing no further discussion, need to vote on the motion basically to terminate the contract with Airfield Consulting effective July 1, and in the interim, go out with a new RFP for lobbyist services. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. New industrial facility, Mr. Parrish.
As we-
Pull on that?
As we discussed at the last meeting, talked about doing or building a new industrial facility that could house Gulf Contours. So I asked Michael Baker, since they were already in the process of putting together a proposal to design our other facility, that they put together a proposal for this. This is a facility that would be 75 feet deep by 150 feet long. It would allow the separation with demising walls of 50 feet, so we could have 3 potential tenants in there, or one, take up the whole space. Construction costs are estimated, depending on how much conditioned space is wanted, somewhere between 1.4 and 2.1 million. I've done all of my calculations for the rental based on 2.5, which is the total cost of the construction and design. At a 6% return, it's about $13,669, not about, but exactly $13,669 monthly. I would recommend that we give me the ability to execute this pending pre-leasing the building. If we can negotiate with either a current tenant or new tenants through a broker to pre-lease the space, then we would proceed with the design and bidding of the project and get costs.
Jim, would that be 100% pre-leasing?
I would at least want to go on this one, since it's 3 units, 66%. I have 2 of the 3.
The 13,660, might just well discuss it now before we provide any direction to staff. The 13,669 per month, is that per unit, or is that for
No, that's for the entire building.
For the entire facility. So theoretically, that could be broken down to 3 components.
Correct.
Whatever, like $4,000 a month, roughly.
Yeah.
Jim, which option are you recommending that pending the pre-lease on the 2.4 million?
No, I think the 2.1, which is a combination of conditioned and warehouse space.
So the base building unconditioned, so basically it would have big holes in the front of the building, that we wouldn't have storefronts? Is that the idea there?
That would be just nothing on the interior, just a
But we
base-
would have the storefront.
We'd have the frontage.
We'd have the storefront, okay. Do we have to meet the commercial design standards for Charlotte County when we?
The ECAP standards.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Parrish, so by giving you the authority to negotiate a pre-lease with this, that would give you the ability to determine what type of building. Is it going to be the base building, the conditioned with storefront, with any potential
Yeah, so
tenants?
and obviously, yes, this is my estimate of rent. If you had a tenant that came in and said, I want 100% conditioned space, I need it as a showroom for tile or whatever, it would be a different cost based on the build-out.
Understood.
Jim, so the $2,150,000, that's basically about $192 a square foot. And in today's market, I mean, self-storage facilities, I know we're seeing prices up around that range.
Yeah.
Just on self-storage.
That includes site work. This is if we put it in the industrial park, it would be on a site that already has water, sewer, and all but the first 1/8 inch of stormwater provided.
Wow. All but 1/8 of an inch?
All but 1/8 of an inch.
Why are our ponds so big for 1/8 of an inch, Jim? I mean, I won't go there.
Some days I ask that question myself. Yeah, if you look at the outfall structures, the ponds are very small. It's just we have to build up so much to get the slopes in. The ponds look huge.
Well, you could bring the bottoms up a little bit.
But you got to get the water out.
Well, you do, I understand.
Mr. Parrish, is there a proposed term of the agreement? Is it a minimum term of 5 years, 2 years, yearly?
I would recommend that we negotiate for a minimum 5 years with a 5-year extension.
And you're of the opinion at this point that this expenditure would not compromise anything else we might have coming down the road, and you're basically looking at this as a revenue source.
This would, yeah, be an ongoing revenue source.
Do we know its location yet, James? I hope we're not picking a prime spot.
It would be, no, we don't know the exact location, but it would be in the industrial park. And we, you know, working with a few other potential tenants, so we would make sure it didn't interfere with anything. My thoughts would be somewhere behind or east, west of the racetrack, between the drainage ditch and the road, Cheney Road. The depths work about right for the building to sit in there, and then we could mirror it and have multiple buildings in the same location.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize our CEO to execute the contract with Michael Baker for the conditioned building with storefront with a value of about $2,150,000. And also allow Mr. Parrish to make that contract or construction contingent upon the pre-lease of the building of approximately 67% as presented.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. Okay, now we need to go to, there are two items that were eliminated from the consent agenda at the request of Mrs. Oliver. One is the rates and charges, update of our rates and charges survey. Let's discuss that. I think it's important that Mr. Parrish, you explain why we have a document called rates and charges.
Well, one, you know, we need to charge a consistent fee to everybody to keep our FAA grants coming. We have to be equitable and consistent in what we charge. It's one of our grant assurances. And it's just something that we update to keep up with cost. We also notice that keep in mind, we have never had a real fixed base operation here. We've always kind of been in a building, it's been an afterthought, and now we're putting together a very nice facility. And I think, one, people that are coming to it expect to be charged for these things, and they're willing to pay it. We just didn't even have them in our rates and charges. So, you know, we've updated everything. We've looked at our neighbors, north, south, east, and nobody west. And, you know, we've changed our ramp fee waivers pending fuel purchase. We've updated our towing, our lav car power units. If you need escorting, it's one of the things on here. It's if you have a mechanical and you're stuck here and your mechanic comes in, we have to have somebody with you at all times. So it's, you know, to have an ops agent or a line service agent out there. Dishwashing, didn't know we did dishwashing, but we are now. So this is basically just a document that we use to be consistent on what we charge everybody who uses the airport. And it also talks about land rents that we update annually, and every other fee on the airport, so auto parking.
I think the important item to recognize is, well, actually two things. One, it's requirement of our grant conditions that we have a rates and charges document. Two, it provides transparency because this document is available to any tenant or possible tenant on what our current rates and charges are for a whole list of things. I think this document, how many pages long is it? It's a long document. and it pretty well defines it.
17.
And with that, we'll just open this all up to discussion. Mrs. Oliver, you brought it up. A motion. How come I can't remember that? Why can't I remember that?
I hesitate to remind you, but
My age?
well, I would say it's the great wealth of knowledge that you have in the way of doing
All
it.
right, we will take a
Ferret it
motion
out.
to establish, update our current rates and charges, which were last updated in 2019.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the rates and charges as presented. Basically, that's it, just as
Yeah,
presented.
that's all we need.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second to approve rates and charges as presented in the document, which will have an effective date of July 1 of 2022. Open for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was doing a little comparison with our fiscal year 2020 rates and charges, and just, again, noticed a lot of differences, was hoping that we could go through it a little bit. To begin with, the aviation fuel in our 2020 version, it was a cost of goods sold plus Jet A margin, and for avgas, it was cost of goods sold plus avgas margin. Has that changed in this new document?
Gary?
Yes, 10 cents, each margin went up 10 cents, the avgas, jet fuel, and self-serve.
Okay, thank you. And then there are discounts based on the volume.
Yes.
Was that in the previous version?
No, that was something that our competitors have in place, and it encourages people to purchase more fuel, so no, that's new.
Okay, thank you. The ramp fees, I saw that our cost of towing did double from where it was a year ago. Was that based on any charges that we're being charged or any markup that we're receiving?
That was, as Mr. Parrish indicated, we took a look at our other airports, and we saw what their fees were, and we thought that that was a fair rate to charge.
Okay. And then, yes, I did see the addition of various services that we have not been providing before, I take it.
Correct.
As to the T-hanger and box hanger leases, those look like they all went up by about 5%.
Yes, the general increase every year that they do go up, but we didn't increase the actual base rent for any of the hangars.
Now, is that including folks who have already had T-hanger rentals, they've been sort of grandfathered in, or is this for brand new rentals?
This is for brand new leases, yes. Those grandfather rates stay.
So all the current leases, and the reason you're seeing an increase is the current leases had a base rate plus 2.5% a year.
Sure.
So that's
Oh,
why.
it's plus 2.5, it's not contingent on CPI.
No, it's 2.5% a year.
The base rates haven't changed on the hangars.
Okay. And is there any requirement that we charge fair market value for T-hanger rentals by the FAA?
Not on aviation leases.
To our land leases, I noticed that the rates went up, it looks like a range between 16.6% to 25%, just over last year's, based on acreage. And I understand that was done pursuant to a fair market value study.
Every January, we contract with a local land appraiser to give us those rates.
Now, does that mean that a particular parcel within the industrial park is necessarily the appraised value will fall within that exact dollar amount? So, for instance, are there some non-airside access 10-acre plus sites that are more valuable or less valuable based on location or any other indicator?
There are, and And we have in the past gone out, like with the Speedway, done a specific appraisal for that site.
Okay.
But this is just this gets the ball rolling. This is the average, and these numbers aren't exact. We can charge as low as 8%, as high as 10% of the actual, or 12% of the actual value. So depending on, you know, if a tenant's coming in and they're going to put in $6 million facility, you know, we can extend the time, we can reduce the rate. It really depends on what they're doing and the impact to the airport.
So we do still retain that flexibility to get creative with
Yeah.
solutions to.
Yeah, this is really, you know, when it comes to land rents, it's really dependent on what, you know, we decide and can get the FAA to approve. And you know, 49 years versus 80 years, the FAA has the ability to go longer, and we have the ability to go shorter. It's just, it depends on the development.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Jim, quick question. Anything we're proposing to do in the industrial park with the rates that would possibly be charged for that be included in this document?
The industrial park?
Yeah, spec building.
Well, the spec building, since it's on our land, we charge a fair market value based on the building
Okay.
cost itself.
So it
and
wouldn't
the
affect
land
that.
combined, it wouldn't affect that.
Who on earth tracks all these little fees and gets an invoice out to the customer?
So we have customer service reps that are in charge of that, and we have software in place. When you land your airplane, you fill out what you need. You're going to stay for 2 nights. You're going to take on
All right.
400 gallons of fuel. They put it in there, and when you
Sure.
leave, you get an invoice.
Gotcha. So Sandy has something to do with that, I would imagine?
Well, Sandy takes in the number every day, but, you know, it's the FBO staff that runs that. We have some new software that's running everything from ramp fees to leasing buildings.
That's under airport revenues?
FBO revenues, yeah.
Okay. FBO.
And it doesn't look like our concession fees changed except for the peer-to-peer services, or 6% of gross revenue.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And auto parking. It looks like it did not change much, except that instead of getting the first 2 hours free, it's only 1 hour for
Yeah.
short term.
And that
That's
was,
existing.
yeah, and that's actually was changed by the board previously.
Yeah. Otherwise, it does not appear, it looks like we added RV and trailer parking.
Yeah,
Which
we-
is interesting. Do we have any of those?
We do.
That's fascinating. Other fees, it looked like there were no changes. Is there anything that I'm missing that has changed dramatically?
No, I think you covered it.
Thank you. I just think it's important that we go through this rather, you know, so folks understand what they're being charged for, what's going up, what's not, just to remain really transparent. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your time.
And I think it should be emphasized again that this document is available to any and all tenants or anyone that's looking at locating here. It's a public document. So with that, hearing no further discussion, I'll entertain,
You have a motion and a motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the rates and charges as presented to be effective July 1, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. The other item that Mrs. Oliver wanted to pull was the rental car request for proposals. So you have, we need to have a motion, second, and then discussion.
Where are we at?
The RFP for
Under
13.
consent agenda.
rental car RFP.
Oh, wait a minute, it's under number 7, right?
It's within the second page on your agenda.
And what is it again?
It says rental car request for proposals.
Yeah, it's a contract with AECom and Leibowitz and Horton to put together a RFP for continuing services for the rental car companies. Our current contract runs out at the end of the November? Yeah, end of November.
And we've had no problems with these companies?
No, and I would suspect we would end up with the same companies. It's just we haven't put it out on the street in many years, and it's time to do that. They are also going to look at how we're charging and do an analysis of our rates or charges versus a more typical contract. So we're going to do that first as part of this, and then put it out depending on.
Is there a charge for that for us?
That's all included in.
It's all included in
yeah.
this, okay.
And Mr. Parrish, if you could just indulge me, as still the newest member on the board, as far as outsourcing the RFPs to a third company, I guess I'm just unfamiliar with that, and can you explain the reasoning behind that as opposed to the airport putting out an RFP to the rental car?
Well,
ourselves?
we would still put out the RFP. We're just using them to develop the RFP because that's what they do.
Okay, I just, I did happen to see, it looked like there might be some duplication, the internal, including authority legal review of draft documents. So I think that's good. I think that Attorney Carr should obviously review our documents. I just wondered, is that a duplication of the services? Like, are they having their attorneys go through, so we're paying those attorneys and also
No,
paying
they would develop the documents, and, because they're a national firm, he would do the local and state, make sure that we meet all the local and state requirements in that. So it's not a duplication of services.
Understood. Did we utilize AECom the last time that we put out an RFP for car rental services?
No, we did it ourselves in about 30 minutes, and so this, like I've said, in my 5 years, one of my goals is to get us a little more structured, and although I love Gary, and he's probably watching, it was like a gadzooks, we need rental cars, and that's exactly. So, I think it's important, just like our rates and charges, that we have a new document that's more an industry standard out there for all the rental car companies to look at.
Thank you.
And Leibowitz and Horton, that
Yeah.
this is what they do, financial studies, rental, they helped with our CFC, our PFCs. I mean, this is the reason we go to them, is they're experts on this.
In their specs to develop the RFP, will you address the possibility of consolidated rent-a-car facility, or is that too far down the road involved with our current terminal expansion?
I know you don't think we have a consolidated rental car facility, but I think right now, no, this would not address an expansion or a move of that facility. We've done that study, we discussed it with them, and I think as we look at the terminal,
That's going to dictate.
it's going to dictate it.
And the other question is, have staff considered any revenue diversion with Sunseeker renting cars out of their facility, diverting revenue from this facility?
So that's one of the reasons we wanted to go out with a new RFP, to have a capture area that includes that.
Got it.
Yes.
Everybody understand the capture area? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, I think we
Now we get the motion.
Well, we're doing it backwards now. They started this before, Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that the board authorize our CEO to execute the contract with AECom in the amount of $54,572 to develop a request for proposal and subsequent agreement for rental car services that will be provided for commercial passengers utilizing the Bailey Terminal and those customers utilizing the PVG Air Center, as presented.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of executing a contract with AECom for the development of RFP for rent-a-car concession? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously. Okay, I think we're down to commissioner comments.
You added a public comment.
Oh. We're gonna let the public speak.
You asked.
Okay.
I do.
All right, anyone wishing to address the board during this portion of the meeting, come forward, state your name. You've got 2 minutes with our new clock.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Golan, company is called Concourse. Again, we've been labeled the bad guy. And I'd like to cover 2 quick things, one of which they talk about the fire repair that has not been done. I'd like to advise that, number 1, we have installed what we feel was state-of-the-art dust collection system, including a new fan system that has the approved baffle system that was also approved by the fire marshal who paid us a visit a while back. What has not been done is drywall. And the reason the drywall has not been replaced is because our original contractor had that particular part of the proposal that was sent to the airport, but the airport rejected it based upon they wanted insulation in the walls. There is absolutely no reason for insulation in the walls. It is not any part of a fire barrier. The fire barrier is based upon the drywall. It's ironic to note that the insulation was also not necessary in the roof of our building a while back when we requested to have it after it fell down. The airport did not think it was in order to replace it, even though it had been there for the whole term of our contract. Secondly, I had a conversation right here with Mr. Parrish, Mr. Hansick after the workshop, and at that time we were of the opinion we'd be contacted so that we could express our desire and perhaps even talk about what type of a building would be sufficient for our needs. You're talking now of getting a proposal from some designer. I have no clue whether that particular building will meet our needs. You're wanting somebody to stand up here and say, hey, we're going to be the tenant. I'd love to be your tenant, but I'm not going to be the tenant for something. I don't know what it's going to exist, where it's going to exist, and what the cost is. That would be crazy. I would be very much like to talk. We have specific requirements, and I've related it to the board before, and we've heard nothing. I don't think that's right. Thank you for the use of this.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Morning, gentlemen, ladies. Larry McClure. I'm a tenant, aircraft owner, and president, seems like for life, of the EAA 565. Just have a quick question. You were kindly enough to approve the money to pave runway 927, which I think is really a good idea. Now, my question is this. The existing runway now paved is 2,600 feet long, 2,636 to be exact. There's about 1,000 feet of that runway that was original that were not paved when it was paved back after the hurricane. So that would make it about we'll call it 3,600 feet. And I can only assume that the monies that you approved today were only for the existing paved runway. Is that correct, Mr. Parrish? Okay. I would just say that it would be very beneficial if somehow we could pave that other 1,000 feet of runway. It would vastly improve the opportunities for the larger airplanes that are going to be utilizing the new facility that you've got up there. But thank you for your consideration.
Okay. We have Mr. McClure's comments, and we can give him a response after the meeting. Anyone else? Seeing no one else approaching the podium. We're now ready for commissioner comments, and we'll start with Mr. Andrews, please.
Well, I think this has been a very good and productive meeting, and I understand the airport's dilemma with building costs. I watch it in the residential market, and it's going up on a continuous basis, which is affecting buyers who are financing homes. You have inflation, you have cost of homes going up, both new and existing homes. So it really puts everybody, including us, in a bind. But, you know, we'll work our way through it. Other than that, it's been a good meeting. Look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Okay. Mrs. Aller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, yes, good meeting. Thank you, staff, for your indulging me and explaining to me piece by piece our new rates and fee structures. I also appreciate the new spec building that, you know, we approved the moving forward and entering into pre-lease negotiations. I would hope that we reach out to Mr. Golan and see if that is something that would be good for Gulf Concourse, and just maybe increase that communication a little bit, pick up the phone, maybe drop by and just walk through it. I think that would be extremely helpful. Also, as to Mr. McClure's comments, I do wonder if it is worthwhile to get a quote to find out about the extension of 927.
I could talk to you about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, unless you want to answer it now, while everybody's here and I understand why we're not.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict with the airspace on 927 and 422, and as a matter of fact, that's the reason it was to be closed. It was a hard hurdle to get across with the FAA to keep 927 active. So we wanted to extend it to 3,000 feet, and we couldn't get approval in the master
Is it
plan.
just the danger? Like,
Safety?
It's too close. The one end interferes with the approach zone.
Yeah, and so that's why it's a daytime use only GA runway.
And then, as I understand it, in discuss, because I too raised the question with staff, why don't we take it to 3,000? But resurfacing is one thing, extending it, we're back into re-engineering, environmental statements, all that kind of stuff that goes, it's just not a simple thing of going out there and paving over the old. If in the future we can demonstrate a demand.
Sure, and it, you know, that's always something you look at as you do master plans, and I think we're 2 or 3 years from another master plan update. We could look at that. We'd like to note that we, for the first time ever, have a full parallel on 927, which has been something the community's been asking for a long time, and I've been telling them, just wait, we'll do it. You know, for the longest time, you had to back taxi almost the entire length of the runway to use it. So we're getting, you know, much safer, much more useful piece of pavement at the end.
Yeah, you may all remember years ago, there was a good possibility that thing was going to be shut down, but with the development of, you're looking on the GA terminal, June, July?
July 1 is our
target
date for the opening, putting our staff over there. So that's what I've indicated to staff is the date. They keep telling me I'm crazy, but we were over there yesterday. I think we're close.
We can take all our plastic chairs and put them in there.
Furniture we have.
Okay. Okay, Mrs. Coppola. Sorry to interject.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to congratulate everybody who went on the honor flights out of our airport. If you get a chance, please, please, please escort one of our veterans on these flights. It's a magnificent day, and it's just wonderful to be with them and listen to their stories. They're wonderful people. The restaurant, how's our restaurant coming? I've been asked by many people if we're going to have a really nice restaurant, if they can look over the field and watch the planes land and take off. And
tell all your friends we'd love to.
Yeah.
We're working on trying to get somebody interested.
Okay. Well, a lot of people like to come down here just for the atmosphere. Just thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a great, great meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Hurston.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Really no comments, but it was great to see Commissioner Deutsch and our city council people in attendance, and great job by staff. You guys are just awesome, unbelievable. And I know we have a few of our engineering firm people in the audience. It's always good to see you guys. You do a great job. Thank you. But with that being said, Mr. Chairman, that's it.
Okay, I think I've said enough, and it was an interesting meeting. I think it's important to understand that all the contracts we signed today are being funded internally or through PFCs or AIP grants. There's no debt being incurred, and what's is also interesting, having the ability to get federal dollars from this source, that source, and the state source, we're able to advance a number of needed projects that are identified in our master plan, which is advancing those things. And I got the signal. I got a note right here, Sandy. We're asking, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, ask for adjournment, and ask that the board members stay. We're in the process of changing banks, and we need to have live signatures.
Oh, yes.
And if you can indulge me, I'll be out of town. I'll be at the AAA conference. Then I'm taking a couple of days off, driving to Reno for another conference there, and then a couple of days off and flying home.
Yeah,
So
and you might mention why you're going to Reno.
I'm going to Reno to gamble. Why else do you go to Reno?
No, you're not going there.
No, we're going to Jumpstart, which is speed dating with airlines. Gary and I get to spend 8 minutes with a number of airlines and sell ourselves. Oh, it's the absolutely worst thing in the world. But we have a good consultant that helps us date effectively.
Didn't we do that here one time, I recall, way back?
I don't think we've ever had it here, but there are multiple conferences a year that we go to. This is one of them. They're all the same format. But we've got a lot of interest. So it's good that we continue. Putting our name in front of them is the most important part of it.
Exactly right. Okay, do I need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our May 26th meeting of the Charlotte County Airport Authority is adjourned, and we'll have our new banker bring our documents.